Okay, Madam Mayor, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready? We will bring the assembly meeting to order for April 4th, 2022. Ms. Hale, will you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Well, Holger Doc, would you give us the land acknowledgement, please?
We would like to acknowledge that the city and borough of Juno is on Tlingit land and wish to honor the indigenous people of this land. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Native people have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of our community. We are grateful to be in this place, a part of this community, and to honor the culture, traditions, and resilience of the Tlingit people. Gunesh Chish.
Thank you, Holger Doc. And with that, roll call. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Bryson,
Present.
Ms. Hale,
Here.
Ms. Hughes Candies,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Treem,
Here.
Ms. Wall,
Present.
Walal Doc.
Here.
Ms. Gladysevsky.
Here.
And Mayor Weldon.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, we'll go to special order of business. Our first special order of business will be an update of TBMP with Mr. Kirby Day. Go ahead, Mr. Day.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. Kirby Day, 1302 Tarn Court. I just wanted to give the assembly and those listening a quick update on tourism best management practices. We're going into our 26th year, which is hard to believe on some cases and not in others, but we're real proud of the program. As you know, the operators continue to remain dedicated and committed, even though we've had kind of a 2-year hiatus of little or nothing going on. We have great participation. All our key operators are signing back up and, like I say, dedicated and committed to the goal of the program, and that's to address impacts in the community, keep Juno a great place to visit and a great place to live. The program will be starting this summer in Ketchikan and also in Skagway. I'm doing a presentation for Whittier on April 18th. They'd like to start the program. And Liz Perry and I just did a presentation for Bar Harbor, Maine, and they're looking at using our model to start a program in Bar Harbor. So all that to say that this is the first summer since 2019 that we'll actually see a lot of visitors and have a lot of activity. So we're starting up the program. We've made our changes to the program, to the guidelines for 2022. All of those are out and you should have all received a copy. They're on our website as well at tbmp.info. And on behalf of all the businesses, we're looking forward to some sort of normalcy in our visitor population coming back. I know there's a lot of businesses that have had a very, very difficult time over the last 2 years and need this to come back. And it's pleasing to see that we will see a rise in visitation this summer, not only from cruise ship visitors, but I'm sure from independent visitors as well. So the program is alive, it's well, we're dedicated, we're committed to it, and we appreciate the Assembly's support of the program all these years and city management. We're working very closely with the new CBJ tourism manager, Alex Pierce. She's using this as a tool as well, and look forward to a great summer. Something we've been looking forward to for 2 years. So I'll leave it at that and see if there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Day? Ms. Gladchevsky?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one quick question. Thank you, Mr. Day. Thank you for all your work on this all these years. Has the percentage of people or of operators participating in the program changed much over the years, or this year? Do you have 90% of operators signed up, or what would you say to that question?
Mr. Day?
Thank you, through the chair. So I think that early on, in the first 10 years, we're not successful in getting a lot of the independent tour operators that didn't have a contract with cruise ships or were small, and they didn't really participate. That changed about 15 years into the program, about 2012, I guess. And ever since then, we've really, I guess the way I like to couch it is, members of TBMP are 90% of the folks and businesses that can create an impact and can address and resolve an impact. There may be a number of small six-pack fishermen or small van tour operators or something like that aren't part of the program yet, although we've picked up a lot of those smaller, mom and pop operators over the last 5 or 6 years prior to the pandemic. Today, we're still, I think the deadline to sign up is May 1st. So we're probably 70% there. And we've had a couple of businesses go out of business because of the events of the last 2 years. But we fully expect 95% of those who were signed up in 2019 to be signed up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Day? Seeing none, thank you. And we did get the guidelines. And if assembly members don't have the guidelines, they're in your mailbox upstairs. So grab them before you leave tonight. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you very much.
With that, we'll go to Madam Clerk before she runs off for instructions for public participation. So Ms. Cathcart, can you take over that, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Assembly follows the current protocols for COVID in accordance with CDC guidelines, CBJ ordinances and resolutions. And Assembly members are meeting in person to the extent possible. The public is recommended but not required to mask at meetings. The public may participate in person or via Zoom webinar. To testify, if you are in person, just sign up here at the back of the room. And then to testify via Zoom, not this time, but at our next Assembly meeting, would be contact the clerk's office by 4 p.m. and we'll get your name listed on there. And I think that covers everything. Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cathcart. And I believe we have no minutes tonight. So we'll move on to the manager's request for agenda changes. Mr. Manager.
Madam Mayor, just one agenda change. We'd just like to do a very short staff report on the budget. Mr. Rogers promises less than 2 minutes.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. So we'll add that to our list. Anything further, Mr. Manager?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, and so this gives us to public participation on non-agenda items. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on non-agenda items?
Both of them are agenda items.
Mr. Day.
Great. Thank you again. And I was going to combine this, but it's not really TBMP related. Kirby Day 1302 Tarn Court, and now speaking to you as a member of the Holland America Group, just to touch base and say that Holland America is really looking forward to the end of this month, April 29th, when they will connect a ship to shore power here in Juno for the first time. We were able to secure a contract with AEL&P and the Regulatory Commission of Alaska over the winter for Holland America to begin to purchase available shore power. And we anticipate her first connection or commissioning being April 29th with the Zider Dam. The Zider Dam should connect on 20 port calls this summer. And the Koningsdam, in preparation for connecting in 2023, will commission and connect 3 times this summer at the Franklin dock. So we're really excited about that and look forward to adding those shore power calls to Juno. And I've been told by AEL&P that, and this probably is no surprise, but given the weather we've had over the last 6 or 7 months, it looks very promising that they should have enough interruptible hydro energy to service both cruise lines this summer. So we look forward to that. And I just wanted to pass that along.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Day? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there any public request for consent agenda changes other than ordinances for introduction? Assembly request for consent agenda changes. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I request that in the resolution section, item B, resolution 2981 be pulled from the consent agenda.
All right, so that will be our first and only item in our public hearing then. Any further requests for consent agenda changes? Seeing none, assembly action, Ms. Gladszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the consent agenda as amended and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. Okay, with that, we will move on to public hearing with the item we just put there. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Resolution 2981, a resolution supporting the people of Ukraine and suspending the Juno sister city relationship with Vladivostok, Russia.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has engaged in an unprovoked and unjustified attack on the sovereign nation of Ukraine. CBJ stands firmly with Ukraine and its people. This resolution would join the CBJ into the international community in strongly condemning the egregious actions of President Vladimir Putin for ordering the invasion of Ukraine and would suspend the CBJ's sister city relationship with Vladivostok, Russia. CBJ shall continue to support the people of Vladivostok and looks forward to a time when true people-to-people cooperation can be restored. Assembly Human Resources Committee discussed this resolution on March 14th and this evening on April 4th. I have no recommendation on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So we will go to public hearing on this, and we have Luann McVeigh signed up. Ms. McVeigh, please come to the mic. Make sure you turn it on so it's green. Just push that little button at the bottom. And please state your name, or please state your name and area of town you live in for the record. And since there's only a couple of you, you can have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Luann McVeigh, and I live at 1507 2nd Street in Douglas. And I've lived there for a long time. It's been about 31 years since we moved into our house. And when we first moved in and we had young kids, we hosted a couple of folks from Vladivostok and had an incredible visit. It was all part of the sister city arrangement. And I thought they were wonderful people, and we learned so much from them. And yet I'm aware now that with the situation in Ukraine and Russia, I don't believe that the Russian people, like those folks that we hosted here, even really know what's going on. I don't believe that they are aware that their president has ordered troops over to Ukraine and that they're killing babies and mothers, and they're destroying beautiful homes and apartment buildings. And it's just totally preposterous to me. I can't believe that those folks, those good people are unaware of what's going on, but I think it's probably true because this Putin is such a lie monger. And I think that it takes every community in this country to do the best that we can to make an impression on those folks who actually live there in Russia, so that they know what's happening. They know what their president is doing. They know what their military is doing. And right now, it doesn't look to me or sound to me like that's the case. I just saw something on MSNBC tonight before I came here about a newsreel that was going out in Russia, and they were telling the people of Russia that the Ukrainians were the ones who were doing this destruction and that were killing the children and the mothers and so on. And I find it appalling. I think we have to do anything we can. And I think this resolution will allow us as a small community that has a connection to Vladivostok, Russia, to make a statement that might make a difference for those folks there. The people of Russia need to know what their president and what their military are doing in Ukraine. And that's our responsibility. That's maybe all we can do as a community, but I'd really like to see us do something. And I want to urge you to pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. McVeigh? Thank you for your testimony tonight. All right, next we have Mr. Simonson. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Roald Simonson, 203 West 3rd here in Juno. And I am in support of not only this resolution, but anything that can be done from any corner of any part of the United States. There's got to be an accumulating thing to get across to everyone in Russia that we can, whether it's unfairly or fairly targets them. It's just got to be in a massive world tidal wave that has to come in. And so I am in support of this resolution. I would say that my interest in this is the same interest anybody has, human. But I've spent a significant time in Russia, a profound experience for me, and more recently in Kyiv too. And so I have friends there that I'm in communication with. I'll try to be quick with this, but at the fundraiser last week, Maria came up and showed me the resolution that you guys are considering. And I know something about resolutions, work in the legal service in the legislature, and I looked at it and then I thought, well, what if I were to write one of my own? Mine's very brief and very quick, and if I may read it, and I do it only because I want to sort of get across maybe another form of outrage about it. Everybody knows that Putin is saying that Ukrainians are Nazis, right? You know, that story. So,
Right.
anyway,
You can read it, but you have a minute, just let know.
okay. You may have copies of it. Anyway, so I will just, resolution, an appeal from Juno to Vladivostok, sister cities. Whereas Ukrainians are not Nazis. And I go through a couple things about borders should be observed. And whereas Vladimir Putin invaded the sovereign nation of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022, with the intention of overtaking its land, cities, and people, and obliterating it as a country from maps of the world. And whereas while a murderous expansionist despot has redrawn these international boundaries, whereas in the last 5 weeks, There's been death, destruction, and misery for Ukrainians, as well as soldiers on both sides. Be it resolved, and I think this is the key thing. And I don't know how you can send this to them, but this is what I think the world will send to them is, be it resolved, Ukraine must win this war. Putin must lose it. And be it further resolved, the citizens of Sister City, Juneau, Alaska, USA, appeal to the citizens of Sister City, Vladivostok, Primorsky Krai, Russia, with all longstanding respect and affection, to join with us in this grave and firm resolution in spirit and prayer, and as much as possible, word and action.
Okay, that is your time. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. All right, with that, we will go to the assembly. Ms. Hughes Candies, will you give a report from the Human Resources Committee, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As the manager noted, we discussed this at our prior meeting to this evening. At that time, we requested more information be brought back. Tonight, with the benefit of the additional information in our packet, Ms. Hale made the motion to send this to the full assembly for discussion. The Human Resources Committee did not provide a recommendation, but it was the agreed upon feeling of the committee that this was an item that the entire assembly should discuss, also based in part by testimony we had received.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. Ms. Gladaszewski is writer of the resolution. Do you want to add it?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first, I want to say thank you to the Assembly for considering this resolution. I recognize it's not generally the purview of the Assembly to comment on international affairs. So it's not in our lane. So I feel I need to explain how I came to this and why I think it got in our lane. And for me, it got in our lane when I saw the press release from the governor calling on Alaskans to do a whole bunch of different things. And one of them was calling on Alaska sister cities to sever relationships with Russian sister cities. And so we have a sister city in Russia. So then suddenly it was in my lane. And true, the relationship with Vladivostok has been dormant the last few years. It was especially active in the early 90s when it was started, but it's still important, I think, to citizens of Juneau and important in general. And I'm sure everyone on the Assembly condemns what's happening in Ukraine. I have no doubt about that. The question is, do we do something about it at all? So I thought about it for a long time as this happening and the horrors appeared on the TV and everywhere. And a further nudge for me was when I read a tweet from Michael McFaul, who is the former ambassador to Russia. He said, if you have done something big or small to help Ukrainians in their fight against Putin, I applaud you. And now I'm asking, please do more. So that's when I started drafting resolution for consideration here. And it's specifically the issue of in their fight against Putin. This is not we're going to help with aid or help rebuild or anything like that. It's really about what's happening on the ground now for me. So for me, it's a way to get a message to people in Vladivostok, people who have, as one testifier said, limited access to information not approved by the disinformation machine happening over there. Just get them a message that their friends in Juneau condemn the actions of their president. If our president invaded a nation and did these things, and I didn't understand what was happening, I would want my friends in Vladivostok to help open my eyes. So I think that's what honest dialogue is and friendship is. That's what sister cities are. So I live in a privileged country where there's access to free press, and they really don't. So I'd just like to say I wholeheartedly support the goals of sister cities, fostering citizen diplomacy, but doing nothing at this time. In other words, not passing this resolution doesn't foster peace or understanding. It's just, and it's also not honest. Obviously, this is not going to end the war in Ukraine. It's a pebble And if it helps a few people in Vladivostok think twice about what's happening in Ukraine, and if they talk to their friends about it and think twice about it, perhaps eventually they could be moved to action. And that's all I can hope for. Remaining silent is doing nothing. And I appreciate one of the testifiers talking about getting the people of Vladivostok to do something. And in fact, in one of the early drafts of this, I had something like that in there, but it was pointed out to me that the people of Vladivostok could risk harm to themselves by getting in the street or making, overt expressions at this time. So anyway, that's why it just says suspend. It doesn't say you must do something, but it's a point. So anyway, finally, I'll say that I was reinforced in this notion about doing something from President Zelensky's speech yesterday at the Grammys, spoke at the Grammys. And he ended his message this way: tell the truth about the war on your social networks, on TV, support us in any way you can, but not silence. So I just say we're not alienating or breaking off our connections with Vladivostok. In fact, this actually might rekindle them if they respond. So in the end, I think it's a pebble, and I hope that it might make a difference. Thank you for indulging me in that whole explanation, but I felt it important because we don't normally do these things.
Thanks, Ms. Gladaszewski. First, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gladaszewski before we move to a motion? Ms. Treen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a question for Ms. Gladaszewski, but I was wondering if Walal Gadak might tell us what, if anything, the Sister Cities Committee has discussed on this topic.
We were going to get to that next, but so see no questions for Ms. Gladaszewski. Well, Gadak, would you please weigh in on the Sister Cities?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. The Sister Cities hasn't had quorum because we don't have enough folks who want to apply and sit on the Sister City committee. But if anybody is interested, please put in your application because they could use some support. But we did receive a feedback from their current chair who recommended that we don't move forward with the resolution and suspension at this time. She didn't really give a whole lot of feedback as to why, but there is in our packets from the Human Resources Committee feedback from the Sister Cities International giving explanations as to why suspension of a sister city relationship is not favorable at this time, and they recommend that we don't suspend our relationship.
Thank you for that report. All right, with that, let's entertain a motion before we all give our 2 cents on it. Ms. Gladaszewski.
I just moved to move to adopt resolution 2891.
Any objections? Ms.
Oh, sorry. Let me amend that, Madam
Yeah,
Mayor.
Go ahead. Yes, 2981.
I move to adopt resolution 2981.
Thank you for the correction, Ms. Hale. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would object to adopting this resolution. If you would like me
Speak to your
to speak to my objection, I'll get going. I would start by just saying, of course, I'm horrified by what's happening in Ukraine. I agree with Ms. Gladaszewski. I think everybody on here condemns it. I think everyone in Juno condemns it. I will try to keep this organized, so I'll go down my rationale for not being able to support this resolution. As Walal Gadak just reported, we currently have no Sister Cities Committee to send this resolution. From a practical standpoint, our relationship with our sister city is a little bit in disrepair as it stands. In our packet, as was noted, Sister Cities International weighed in and said, don't end these relationships with these communities in Russia. Cities across the US have dealt with it differently. And so they felt the need to weigh in. And they said it is during times like these that it is most important to keep that bridge open, that person-to-person communication. And I believe that reflects my own feelings as well. It's during these times of conflict that we want to keep the bridge open rather than suspend it. from a process standpoint, I find it an extremely bad practice for the assembly to get involved in the manner of weighing in on the geopolitical landscape. Ms. Gladaszewski noted that we generally don't make resolutions outside of our purview, and I think that's a very good idea that we don't do that, because I think that very quickly leads into a situation where we highlight our differences instead of meeting on our similarities to work on improving our town. We could probably pretty easily find some things that we disagree on that are happening in the world at large, if we all started asking Mr. Attorney to weigh or to draft resolutions, expressing our opinions, because that's truly what a resolution is just expressing our opinion on that. So I feel like just from a process standpoint, I would not want to support that. But in addition to that, I would just like to note that in the time we have several different sister cities, we've had this relationship with Vladivostok. This is not the first time that Russia has been a bad actor on the landscape. No one called for us to suspend our relationship with Vladivostok when Russia was involved in airstrikes in Syria, which killed, at least in 2016, 1,700 civilians, including more than 200 children. The Syrian Network for Human Rights, by 2017, reported that Russians had killed more civilians than either the Islamic State or the Syrian army. And the numbers go up and up and up. There's children, there's women. It's the same thing that we're seeing happening in Ukraine, and it's terrible. But I do think, again, for that same process reason, I don't think while the whole world has its eye fixed on Ukraine, I think it's easy to get carried away, not carried away in our condemnation, which is absolutely correct. But we all desire to do something, but I don't think it's good to let ourselves get wrapped up, especially when I think of things that have happened in the past and we had no one calling on us to do that. We received lots of emails from the public on this, mixed, some in support and some in against. And I appreciate that testimony from the public. But some of the emails we received in favor of this resolution shocked me and only convinced me that voting against this would be the right thing to do. They were extreme in their characterization of the Russians as a people. And it reminded me of exactly what I don't want us to do, which is to go into a sort of Red Scare situation where we don't acknowledge that people the world over all want peace. They want to be able to raise their families. They want food on their table. And finally, thank you for indulging me, Madam Mayor. I would just like to say, if the rationale is that this might motivate people in Vladivostok to do something, the city of Vladivostok was one of the first places to hold protests when Russian opposition leader Navalny was arrested last year. There were detentions of over 4,000 people in 53 cities, including Vladivostok. The people of Vladivostok are actually doing something. They are putting themselves in danger by protesting the oppressive state. And when we do something like this, we're safely comfortable in Juno, and we're using the city of Vladivostok as a pawn to make ourselves feel good or feel like we're doing something. I think instead we should individually do what Ukraine has asked, which is find an aid organization to donate to, publicly support Ukraine. But I don't think we should do this for process reasons and to feel as if we've done something more. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes-Gandis. Any other objection or further comment? Walgadock and then Ms. Wall.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Assembly Member Hughes-Gandis. That was a really detailed explanation as to why you're in opposition to this. I too am in opposition. I feel that there's a point to be made here. I stand with Ukraine and I stand with what they're going through, and I would like to send a message to our sister city. I think the importance of a sister city and the reason why we have Sister Cities International weighing in on this is because they understand that this is meant to bridge and build connection with our sister cities in a way that allows for two-way communication. Suspending that and saying we're no longer going to communicate with you cancels our ability to do that and also cancels their ability to communicate back to us. I think there's a reaching across international lines and saying we are sister cities. We do have this friendship. I also have a real strong thought process as to where this ends. Where do you stop the line of saying we're no longer going to be a sister city with Vladivostok? I have Russian friends who live here in Juno. Do I then say, well, I'm sorry, I can't be your friend right now because your country is doing something bad? So when I'm thinking about the people of Vladivostok, and as was just said, they're doing stuff, they're standing up and they're attempting to make a stand against what is wrong already. I think that that what was introduced during the Human Resources Committee can go a long way in terms of sending a message to them, communicating to them exactly how we feel, rather than saying we're going to cut ties with you, saying this is what we're seeing and you should know about it, and having the ability to communicate with them exactly what we're seeing, why we think it's bad, and why we applaud them for their continuation of and their ability to stand up. I also want to say that I think that it's important for folks to remember that when we're talking about Russia, we're not talking about the United States of America, in a country where we have the right to protest unharmed when we feel something is wrong with the decisions that are being made by any leader in our country. Repercussions are real in Russia when they stand up and say things against their leadership. And they're felt through death, through harm, through physical harm to not only themselves, but their family. And so I want us to be very careful about the message we're sending to Vladivostok, in that maybe they're feeling comfort that they have a sister city in Alaska that does still want to continue to reach out, and rather than punish them for what their dictator is doing, say, we're still here. We understand that you're going through a lot too as Vladivostok, and you're doing what you can. And letting them know that at the end of all this, and when hopefully Russia loses this horrible war, that we're still going to be here, and we're still going to be a support sister city and a friend reaching out our hand across what is very close to Alaska.
Thank you, Holgadok. I have Ms. Wool and then Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to keep this brief. I appreciate everyone's comments and just wanted to lift up Madam Gladishevsky's comments about doing something. I appreciate that. And I think I'm hopeful that if this doesn't pass tonight, we can still make our feelings and inform the people of Vladivostok what is going on and how we feel about them. So just wanted to offer that alternative if this resolution does not pass this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I find myself worried at the depth and articulation of the opposition to this resolution. This is a small effort to do something about a truly horrible, horrible situation. Russia may not lose this horrible war. And if that doesn't happen, I mean, if they don't lose this horrible war, we will have not taken this small action, the only real action that perhaps we can take. I'm just going to try to address a few of the points that I've heard. We're not asking Vladivostok residents to do anything. That's not in there. Ms. Gladishevsky mentioned that she had removed that, knowing that they could put themselves at risk of death, frankly. This is not asking that. This is not saying that we won't talk to people from Russia. This is a formality. It's a symbol, it's symbolic. It doesn't even cancel our ability to talk with our friends in Vladivostok. That doesn't do that. It says we are going to suspend the sister city relationship. It doesn't mean we can't talk to people. A sister city relationship actually is within our purview, and very little else is within our purview. So international law, geopolitics is not, but we have this relationship with a city in a country that is wreaking horrific damage on another country. I will also say that because we didn't do something before is not a reason to not do something now. In the first place, this assembly is not the same assembly that was sitting here in 2016. Almost all of us are different. So, and if we go down that path, we might never do something because we didn't do it before. I think that the news that is coming out this week is horrific, and I've used that word before. I can't even think about it. It's so bad, and I think about those people living there, and then think about what war does to all people and how horrible it is. And I think it's really important that we take this seriously. I appreciate very much Ms. Gladishevsky's drafting this for us to take seriously, and I encourage people to vote for this.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Ms. Gladishevsky?
There I go. I really appreciate everybody's comments, and I think everybody's thought deeply about this. And so I appreciate that we've had the chance to talk. It's not a lane we're normally in. And to respond to a couple of things, we don't have a sister city in Syria, for example. I mean, it's only in our lane because we do have the relationship with Vladivostok. And as I said, it actually could reinvigorate the Sister Cities Committee. Right now, there are 3 people on it. Anybody want to be on the Sister Cities Committee? There are 7 seats. There are 4 seats. Our relationships with our sister cities wax and wane depending on who's on that committee. It was super strong in the early 90s. There were people super interested in Vladivostok. As you heard, Vladivostokians, if that's a word, came to Juno. And it's waned in recent years. It just has. So this, ironically, could reinvigorate that. And I hope that it does. But it was the only formality, the only avenue that I had to do a teeny thing, possibly regarding the current situation in Ukraine. And obviously, we will all donate to aid organizations and rebuild Ukraine and all those things. But right now, there's a bad war going on. So that's all. I just wanted to respond to a couple of things. And I don't know what happened in the HRC to know exactly what you're talking about. So I thought you might amend it or do something to it. And apparently you have, anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gladishevsky. Before we go with you, Ms. Hughes Candy, since you had quite a bit of a turn, does anybody who hasn't spoken yet want to say anything? Well, then I'll chime in. First of all, I appreciate Ms. Gladishevsky drafting this and bringing it forward. She and I have had discussions about this at our staff meeting. So I appreciate that she's carefully worded everything, but when she brought it to me, I said I still had a problem suspending our relationship with the sister city because that is a tie to people, not government. It's people to people, not government to government. So at this time I would object just because of that language there. So that's my 2 cents. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just because we are chiming in, I guess I appreciated Ms. Hale's comments. I can understand some of the reasons people have said to not vote it for this, but I guess this one's easy for me, and it's something small that we can do. I think Ms. Gladishevsky made it clear in the writing that it's not about the people of Vladivostok. It's about, this is a small government to government relationship that we do control, and it does send a signal. And we are the assembly now, and I think it's something we should do. I'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So I see no other hands. So Ms. Candies, go ahead, and then we'll go for a vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it extremely brief, just for the record, since there was a response to some of the comments. I brought up Syria because Russia is who is attacking Syria. And in addition to that, we also have sister cities in the Philippines, and there have been extreme human rights violations by the president of the Philippines. So I was just trying to point out we have a history of bad behaviors from our sister cities that we haven't done anything about. Thanks.
Thank you. So with that, seeing no further hands, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and objection. Please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for the passage of resolution 2981, this was originated by Ms. Gladishevsky. So Ms. Gladishevsky,
Yes.
Balaki Doc,
No.
Ms. Wall,
No.
Ms. Treem,
No.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hughes Candies,
No.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Mr. Bryson,
Yes.
and Madam Mayor.
No.
The motion fails, 4 yeas, 5 nays.
Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that, I'm not sure if we can do this, we direct the mayor to communicate with the mayor of Vladivostok to make the same points that are in the whereas clause of this resolution, so that we can make it known how we feel about the war happening in Ukraine to the people of Vladivostok.
So just to clarify, I'm not going to call him on the phone, so we will write a letter from mayor to mayor that you'll help word. Okay, thank you. Any objection to that direction to the mayor? Seeing that, I'll talk to you tomorrow, Ms. Wall. All right, with that, that concludes our public hearing, and we have no unfinished business or new business, so that brings us to staff reports. Mr. Manager.
Mayor, I just want to have Mr. Rogers just do a very short budget update to let everybody in the public know that the manager's budget is out. It's available on the website. We'll be taking up on earnest starting on Wednesday. And Mr. Rogers is just going to give a few highlights.
Yeah, I won't talk a lot about the budget because we'll spend all Wednesday night, but just to reacquaint you all with the process, we'll start on Wednesday night. We'll meet every Wednesday night for 7 or 8 weeks. We've tried to arrange the calendar a little more intentionally this year, but at the same time caring for a lot of scheduling conflicts with staff who need to present. But we'll start on Wednesday night talking about sort of the big view and talk a lot about what's going on with the general fund. For those of you who've looked at your packet, we do see in the general fund a deficit in the manager's budget, which is only likely to get bigger through the process. That was surprising, I think, to us. We don't have a crystal ball that's any better than your crystal ball. And there's actually a moment where I, as the finance director, have seen a million budget documents and made a million decisions and tried to figure out a million little things. And the big calculator eventually says, whoops, there's not enough money. So So I think that's the thing we'll wrestle with, is what is it to start a budget with a deficit, and what does it mean for next year, and what does it mean for the future? So that'll be the work, I think, with the general fund budgets. But obviously, the general fund budgets are only part of what you do. Obviously, we focus on it a lot, but your review of the school district funding request, your review of the hospital and airport and docks and harbors budgets is critical. And I expect that you take that all just as seriously as you do the work on the general fund budget. And so that will come in the following week. So Wednesday, we'll start mostly with general fund and debt, and an overview of what's going on there. And then we'll move on, as we normally do, to the school district and the hospital, and then the airport, docks and harbors, and also a meeting that we've kind of wrapped around tourism generally, I think is third or fourth on the agenda. Manager's passenger fee proposal, your grant to travel Juno. I think docks and harbors is on that night. So that'll be one way of looking at the budget. And then we'll hear from a lot of your grant requestees. The Assembly has not heard from the Arts and Humanities Council in quite a number of years. We thought it made sense to invite them back and put them on the calendar. And obviously JCF will be here to present. We've consolidated a couple of grants into JCF. I hope that you endorse that, or we've proposed to do that. JCF will speak to that. Those organizations may also speak to that. But we think that that's probably a good thing. So that's, kind of a summary of where the process goes. And then after all of that, we'll get to, I think what we put on the calendar is the decision list, which we used to call the pending list, and any number of other lists. I think now we're trying to call it the decision list. So we'll see if people can get your mind wrapped around the decision list. I don't know why we made that change last year, for whatever it's worth, but we did. There was a reason why we thought pending list didn't work anymore. Anyway, so that's a summary of where we are on the budget. And I think it will be a good process, and certainly very different than the processes we've had for the last 2 years. I think there is some uncertainty about where we're headed, but it's certainly not as uncertain as where we've been in the last couple of years. And we know, no big federal knight in shining armor to save us. I don't think we're on our own for the next phase of this, and we'll work hard together to try and figure out a budget that really works for the city and works for you and works for the people. I think
Thank you,
that's it.
Mr. Rogers. And just a reminder for everybody, we had Mr. Rogers give us a quick briefing before our executive session, because that is not part of our executive session. So I will entertain questions as long as we're not going too far into the budget, because that will happen Wednesday night. But if you have questions in regards to the budget for tonight, the executive session, go ahead, Ms. Hale.
It's not a question, it's just a comment, but it's a very short comment.
Okay.
My very short comment is, if you could, and perhaps our finance chair could, talk to those entities that are presenting to the Assembly and explain that the Assembly wants executive summary level information, and they want it pithily. They can be very pithy and short, and we would love them for it. I would love them for it. Thank you. Double thumbs up on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Hale. And just my question for tonight, since I didn't see anything, and the budget does not have anything to do with the any negotiations, correct?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. The budget does not include a penny related to wage or health insurance increases, and you will likely be expecting some amount of both in a series of decisions that have not yet been made. So that $3.4 million deficit in the general fund that you inherit on day one, you are almost certainly going to expand with additional costs. And at least part of that will be wage negotiations.
All right, thank you for that. All right, I don't see any hands, so thank you for the report. Mr. Manager, is there any other staff report?
No other staff reports. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to assembly reports, the mayor's report. I'll be quick on this because we still have things to do tonight. I had the opportunity to go to Washington DC and talk to our federal delegation. So I was honored to be one of the last groups to talk to Congressman Don Young. He was lively and engaged, and we had a great time with him, and we got to see the famous office. So that was an awesome. So hopefully he was laid to rest with honors at Anchorage on Saturday. So other than that, I will also be traveling to Anchorage with Ms. Kester and possibly one other staff for the grant symposium. For Senator Murkowski has asked us to go up there for the ground symposium for infrastructure grants. Other than that, I've been on the action line, so you can hear a lot of me on the radio right this moment. And then I also want to do a shout out because it's Autism Awareness Month, and I have a cousin who's autistic, so I have a little knowledge on this topic. So just celebrate Autism Awareness Month. With that, that's all I have. So we'll go to committee reports. Ms. Glaszewski, Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Committee of the Whole has not met since we met, but I'm here to happily report that we'll be doing next Monday. I don't think it will be a short meeting. We're going to be talking about the gondola, new city hall, sales tax on food, parking. And if that's not enough, a short EOC report since they're wrapping up. And so that will be Monday's agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Glaszewski. Ms. Treem on finance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might have to find a reason to get out of town on Monday. The Finance Committee, Mr. Rogers just stole a bunch of my thunder. So what Mr. Rogers said, but also I wanted to point out that as a result of our Saturday meeting, a number of appropriating ordinances were introduced tonight, and looks like they're all going to be forwarded to the Public Works Committee on the 11th. So just wanted to highlight that and point that out for those of you who want to watch that process. That Public Works meeting might be a good one to attend. That's all I have for finance.
Thank you. Plans, Ms. Hale.
I'm not quite as up on things as Ms. Gladaszewski. We meet on Monday, but I don't know exactly what's on our agenda yet. I will find out. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Public Works, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Public Works and Facilities has not met, but we will be meeting on Monday to discuss all that finance stuff that Ms. Treem was just mentioning.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Human Resources, Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Human Resources Committee met earlier at 6 p.m. Have a couple of recommendations for you. My first one is the HRC recommends to forward to the full assembly for approval, or actually I take that back. Well, yes, we recommend to forward to the full assembly for approval the recommendation to forward to the State of Alaska Emergency Response Commission appointment of Elaine Hickey to the LEPC Healthcare Systems primary seat for a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2024, and the appointment of Ryan Bear to the LEPC Hazmat Transporter alternate seat for a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2023.
Any objections? Seeing none, they are appointed to the LEPC.
Thank you. I have another one for the Human Rights Commission. We recommend that Lance Mitchell and Mallory Nash be appointed for terms beginning immediately and ending May 31st, 2023.
Any objection? Seeing none, they are appointed to the Human Rights Commission.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the only other thing we discussed was that resolution.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. All of our little subcommittees have been busy, so we'll start with Housing and Development Task Force. Ms. Glaszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Housing and Development Task Force had its last meeting last week or whenever that was. There is a brief report in your red folder, just a 2-page memo. memorializing its final thoughts. The final recommendations are broken into two buckets, if you will, things that are sort of in the control of the manager and the CDD director, and then things that are more regulatory that are in either the planning commissions or the assembly's court. So we will be meeting with the planning commission at some point soon, and we can talk about some of these regulatory items. We can also, some of these things could go to the lands committee for discussion, but this is the recommendation of the committee, and then obviously it has to go to the assembly and planning commission for further action. So if more questions, we can talk about it some other time. Thanks.
Any questions on the memo? Seeing none, because it is a red folder item, people might not have a chance to digest it yet. We can certainly ask questions at another time. With that, we will go to Egocrest Summer Operations Task Force. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Egocrest Summer Operations Task Force has met twice since our last assembly meeting. The first meeting, we walked through some key dates. We did an overview of summer operations discussions that have happened so far. And then the general manager, Mr. Scanlon, laid out a general vision, plans, and associated costs. The second meeting was mostly focused on the recent announcement of interest by Gold Belt to invest up to $10 million to install the gondola in exchange for a share of summer ridership sales. The task force is sending or made a recommendation to the assembly that the assembly direct the manager to negotiate directly with Gold Belt in this matter, and we'll be addressing that motion, I believe, next week. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And while we have you, would you talk about the joint school facilities assembly task or committee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. On this Thursday, April 7th at 12 noon, the Joint Assembly School District Facilities Committee is going to meet via Zoom. And look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And Ms. Hughes Candies, the BRH Assembly Task Force. Where are we with that one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The BRH Assembly Task Force has not met since our last meeting. There's currently a survey that has been sent out by BRH staff, so we'll be meeting theoretically very soon.
All right, thank you for that. Did I miss any committees? All right, with that, we will move on to liaison reports and questions and comments. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you.
Set the path.
All right. So Travel Juno met this week. They discussed the Ironman and tour operations ramp up. The beginning of the season will be a little bit slower, so we won't get inundated with full ships. Mr. Day stated that he figured boats would be coming in at 20 to 30% of occupancy. So the beginning of the summer will start out a little slow. I was able to attend the Women of Distinction gala a couple weekends ago. It was wonderful, very powerful stories. And I did participate in the Glory Hall board meeting, even though that's not related to us, important to us. The Glory Hall is merging with Housing First. We'll have one board that oversees both the Glory Hall and the Housing First projects that may impact us in the future. That's all my report, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Good job. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Juno Commission on Aging met March 15th. They continued to discuss the ARP grant for elder rising or making elder-friendly playgrounds, working on that with the Parks Department, and continuing to work on what it would take to get Juno listed as a friendly community in an ARP listing. And I think we'll hear about that more from the commission in the future. That was my only committee that I'm officially assigned. I've been attending the Egocrest Summer Task Force meetings and the Egocrest planning meetings and watching those with great interest. Title 49 met on March 31st, and they discussed ADOD, or on their agenda was ADOD, Juno Coastal Management Program changes, and the making pre-application hearings optional. I was not able to attend. that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candy. So Ms. Gladashevsky and I want to know what an elder-friendly playground is, and do we qualify?
They look like fun. It's yeah, it's just making it, there's specific equipment that is keeps you moving without getting hurt. They encourage mixing, it's great for the community, getting people who are aging around kids. It looks like they've got some really exciting stuff, and I will definitely be playing on it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. Ms. Dream.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. JCOS has not met since our last meeting, but they will be meeting on Wednesday. The Aquatics Board met last week. I missed that meeting, but they did talk about swim lessons, which are starting up again through Parks and Rec. And there's great concern on the Aquatics Board that we get the needs of the community met when it comes to swim lessons. So they are working on that. Swim lessons. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Dream. Ms. Walhall-Gadok.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. School board met once. As of today, masks are optional in our schools. So that was the big news coming out of that. I'll just put in another plug in case folks online missed it, that Sister Cities hasn't been able to meet because they haven't met quorum. So if anybody is interested in Sister Cities, I think I've said this before, but I've attended Sister Cities events in Anchorage and in Fairbanks, and they're always like amazing, fun get-togethers where the community gets to celebrate all the diversity around the world. And so high bar to fill. I'm sure Juno could have something similar, especially as we're getting outside of COVID. We could have a fun Sister Cities gathering. The school board will be meeting again on April 12th, next Tuesday. So I'll be attending that. I did get a chance to attend the Native Youth Olympics this weekend, statewide competition. We had Unalakleet, Nome, Homer, Seward, Whitehorse from Canada was there. Anchorage, Hoona, Heidelberg. There was just quite a few different schools there competing. Juno took quite a few different medals home. So glad to see them coming out strong, and glad to see all of the participants. We actually got to go in person, which was a big deal because we've been watching online for the last 2 years. So glad to see things starting to open up.
Thank you, Walhall-Gadok. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. BRH met last Tuesday, I think. They talked quite a bit about budget. They talked a lot about how things were so significantly higher, and they're trying to actually figure out how to address those higher costs. So they're actually really looking hard at that and not just assuming, well, we just pay more money. So there was quite a bit of conversation about that. I'm managing to attend chamber again, which is great. I haven't been able to because of my work schedule. Maybe 3 weeks ago, there was a chamber meeting at the Innovation Summit, and the lunchtime talk was on 50 years of ANCSA, and it was terrific. It was really, really a good talk, a really good understanding of the 50 years of history, and then looking forward 50 years. So I really appreciated that. Great speakers, and it was a good talk. I just wanted to mention, because several people have been asking me about the status of the Travel Juno relationship with the Assembly. So there's work going on. Alex Pierce is working with Liz Perry on drafting an MOA, and it will come. The idea is that once the Assembly agrees on that MOA, there will be quarterly updates to the LHED, whatever that committee is, the Lands Committee, so that we have a better understanding throughout the year what's going on with Travel Juno, and we don't just see them once a year. So I just wanted to let people know that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hale. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Systemic Racism Review Committee met the day after our last meeting and reviewed one ordinance and one resolution. They had a good discussion about the resolution that we discussed tonight regarding our sister cities relationship. The results of their review is in your packet. And then they also reviewed the ordinance that would appropriate funds for Bartlett to purchase the family practice building. And so that was not in our packet tonight, even though it was introduced at our last meeting because I believe it was referred to committee, but just wanted people to know that that was the Systemic Racism Review Committee forwarded that on to the full assembly without comment. Docks and Harbors met last week. They continue to work on their rates studies or get updates on the rate study. So that should be interesting to everyone when that is completed. They set a public hearing on April 20th for, I guess I'd call it an amendment to the regulation change that we approved at our last meeting, which was related to increasing dockage fees. If you remember, we exempted cruise ships from those dockage fees increases because of marine passenger fees that were already being paid. There were two ships, the Seabird and the Sea Lion, that were not exempt. And so this will effectively exempt those ships. So there's a public hearing set for that April 20th. So we will eventually see that depending on its path. And then they approved sole source funding that we approved tonight for fixing the outer floats at Statter Harbor that were damaged in October. So hoping to have that fixed before. And they're working on dog behavior related regulations in our harbors that we may see at some point as well. That was it.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Juno Commission on Housing and Homelessness met. I guess they're seeing that there have been a lot of evictions recently. A reminder from Alaska Legal Services that they are there to help. They also had some discussion on SNAP beneficiaries, and then also just how the group is again seeing more homelessness as well, and people that are first-time homeless, as well as people needing food. So I think some of the economics of the community are starting to stress people a little bit. Glad to see us making some potential investments via the housing fund. And they appreciated that is a priority of the assembly and the community. The UAS Campus Council met today. A couple of things of note: the UAS commencement is Sunday, May 1st. And then they did recently find some nursing faculty to help instruct the nursing cohort that is based out of UAS. That's good news. They were struggling there, and that would have just been problematic in terms of getting more nursing students studying at UAS. There hasn't been a full Egocrest board meeting since our last assembly meeting. Then the next board meeting is this Thursday, April 7th at 5:30. There was an Egocrest planning committee meeting, which was mostly focused on gondola alignments and other detailed considerations regarding the gondola and other infrastructure. I mentioned the Joint Assembly School Board Facilities Committee previously. I also attended Women of Distinction. Really great to hear those stories and just see some of just see firsthand and hear firsthand the many great things that just our powerful, strong, amazing women in this community have done. And looking forward to Folk Fest this week, as well as the UAS Mariculture Conference next week. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Gladys.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Downtown Business Association has not met since we last met. Couple of things I'll mention. Juno is in the running for America's Best Bus Stop. Yep, it's on usastreetsblog.org. And we're in semifinals. We've beat out, Juno was against Minneapolis and Escondido, and we beat out them. And then Portland, Maine is the winner of the round. So anyway, it's we're losing right now. 800 votes for Portland, Maine, and 600 votes for us. So get on usastreetsblog.org. It's a great nomination. It's nominated by someone who's in transportation planning, who used to live in Juno, who's actually the daughter of a former assembly member, and it makes our bus stop sound spectacular. It's the bus stop by the federal building, so it's beautiful views both ways, Pelican, and the whole thing. Anyway, it's pretty fun. The other thing, I attended the fundraiser for Ukraine, and speaking of elder-friendly playgrounds, I procured a zip line and am in the process of installing it in the backyard for an elder-friendly playground. It's actually for children, but if you weigh less than 200 pounds, you can come and spin on it. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gladys. So there's no presiding officer reports and continuation of public participation on non-agenda items. I don't believe we have anybody else signed up. Madam Clerk? Okay, and there's nobody else left in the room. So that brings us to executive session. Ms. Treem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the assembly recess into executive session to discuss matters, the immediate knowledge of which would adversely affect the finances of the municipality, specifically an update on collective bargaining, and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Treem. Is there any member of the public that objects to us going into executive session? Seeing none, we will move into executive session and we will, Ms. Wall.
Sorry, I was not prepared, but I'd like to just make it public that I have a conflict of interest as it relates to negotiating with the CCFR union, and will recuse myself from any conversations around that specific negotiation.
Thank you, Ms. Wall, for pointing that out. So we will meet upstairs in room 224. How quickly can you be ready, Madam Clerk? 10 minutes? Okay, we'll see you there in 10 minutes. So we are adjourned for now.
Okay.
savvy. I don't know how long they're going to be, so you're welcome to call it a night. Thanks again so much for everything you do for us all the time.